When I share the story about my son's birth, I worry that people will think I am selfish or ungrateful because I talk about almost dying. I gave birth to a beautiful, healthy baby boy, which is what everyone wants, but the process to get there was difficult. The labor and delivery was one medical intervention after the next. I was induced. It was recommended because of how large he was measuring, around 37 to 38 weeks. It started with a extremely rough Foley bulb insertion that did not dilate me significantly, so I was on Pitocin for a very long time. I had a epidural eventually that was placed incorrectly the first time, so I felt a lot of the contractions for a large chunk of the delivery. When we finally got to pushing, my son went sunny side up, which is a very cute name for something absolutely excruciating. He had to be manually flipped over, and after all of that, we ended up moving to a C-section anyway. A very vivid memory was when my son was finally handed to me. Feeling him against me for the first time was such a beautiful moment. I remember feeling how warm he was against how cold I was, but shortly after that, I started very violently shaking to the point where I actually asked my husband to take him. And in that moment, I felt extreme shame, like I was failing as a mother. I couldn't even hold my son properly. Was I already failing as a mother? It was 3 minutes in, and that was all I could think of at the moment. But I continued violently shaking, and shortly after that, I hear on the other side of the curtain, we have a hemorrhage huddle, and that was the moment in the childbirth that I thought I was going to die. I was I was more angry than anything after all of this nonsense. I'm going to die. This isn't fair. But I was very much convinced in that moment that I was going to die. I do not remember anything after that until I was being wheeled into the recovery room with my son. I do believe that was a trauma response, blanking out those memories, out of self-preservation. But one of the things that I do have from that is what I actually think is a very cruel trigger, which actually is skin to skin with my son. Sometimes it's fine, sometimes it's very benign, but sometimes when I hold him, I remember that vivid sensation of how warm his skin was against how cold mine was, and I'm taken back to that night. I'm taken back to that moment where I felt like I was going to die. And I do believe that is childbirth related PTSD. It is a uncontrollable physiological response. I sweat, my heart rate goes up, and I literally feel like I'm back there. Um, my participation in Dr. Deckel's study has been great. It was actually during my postpartum visit with her that she actually recommended I do speak to someone, and I have started therapy, which has helped tremendously. My participation in this study has helped, as well as being able to share my story. So thank you for letting me share my story.